Hey guys, John Jr. here, bringing you guys another Pokemon video. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite Pokemon introduced in Scarlet and Violet, and that is Slitherwing, and I'm very excited to talk about this Pokemon with you guys. But before all that, did you know that only about 25% of viewers that watch my channel are subscribed? So if you are not subscribed already, why don't you go ahead and scroll down there, subscribe, and why not leave a like while you're at it? It really helps me and the videos out. Lets me know you guys like what I'm doing and to continue doing it. With all that being said though, let's go ahead and talk about my favorite Pokemon introduced in this game, and that is Slitherwing. Slitherwing, for those of you that do not know, is the past version of Volcarona and is only obtainable currently in Scarlet version. He is a monster in competitive singles. Slitherwing has a bunch of really cool different sets, but let's go ahead and start with the base of the Pokemon, which is going to be the typing, the stats, and the ability. As with all Paradox Pokemon, it has Photosynthesis, in which when Sunny Day is active, it gets a stat boost. And also, for those of you that do not know, Photosynthesis got mined a little bit more, and if it's an offensive stat, it's 1.3 times, or I guess defensive as well. And if it's speed, it's 1.5 times. So it's like either a Life Orb boost or it's a Choice Scarf. As for his typing, he is Bug Fighting, and Bug Fighting is a very good type. We all know, and we all know how good Buzzwole can be. I don't know anything about OU or anything like that as far as Buzzwole last generation. I don't think he was really used that often, but as far as Draft League goes, Slitherwing is going to be a monster. It has all of the tools it needs to succeed. So let's go ahead and talk about his stats. His stats all around are super good. We have 85 HP, 135 attack, 79 defense, 85 special attack, 105 speed def, and 81 speed. So my initial thoughts about this Pokemon, just looking at the stats, obviously I do think that it's probably a little bit worse than Buzzwole, but Buzzwole isn't in this game, so it's a decent substitute. His dual typing of Bug Fighting not only is offensively very prevalent, but also is pretty good defensively because it's a bug type that isn't weak to rocks, and also it resists ground, which is always really nice to have on specifically your Draft League team. As far as his stats go, this Pokemon is no slouch defensively. He's a very good Pokemon, 80, 80, 105 basically, which is pretty good all around, and he has Morning Sun, which is able to recover off any damage that may be coming his way. Honestly, very bulky Pokemon. The only thing that this Pokemon does lack a little bit of is speed. I wish they just completely threw away his special attack and just raised its speed a whole lot, but instead we have 85 special attack and only 81 speed, which isn't unusable. It's kind of a niche speed tier. There's not a lot of Pokemon where you're like, oh, I want to hit 81, but he's definitely usable not only with the band but also the Scarf, because he has 135 attack and he just hits so ridiculously hard. Moving on over into this thing's moveset, we have a lot of toys that make this Pokemon very specifically fun in draft setting as well as usable in OU. So a couple of the big things that I do want to note, it actually keeps Flare Blitz, which is actually a really big positive. If you want to hit a steel type but you don't want to take the -1/-1 that close combat gives you, Flare Blitz is definitely a good alternative. Flare Blitz also allows you to hit opposing bug types as well as other Slitherwings, which is actually really nice because otherwise it gets walled by itself. Some other really good moves this Pokemon gets, we have Close Combat, Leech Life, really good stabs. You can't really ask for much better from a bug fighting type. And we also have First Impression, and this is where it shines a little bit better than Buzzwole. First Impression allows it, if you do not know, to go first on the first turn that it is out, and that really benefits this Pokemon because of its lackluster speed. So not only if you are a choice band set, you send something packing, you could even throw on like maybe a Life Orb or a Silver Powder. Is that what the bug thing is called? I don't know. The bug boosting item, Insect Plate, and you have a really hard hitting First Impression, that really hard hitting 90 base power priority move, I do believe. Yeah, 90 base power coming out from a 135 base attack Pokemon. This Pokemon is great with its stabs. It has nothing to worry about with the stabs. As far as other moves go, I have what I think are probably the 4 next most important moves. Earthquake actually might be more important than Flare Blitz, but Morning Sun, super important, especially in Draft League format. Right now the meta is a little bit offensive, so Morning Sun is not going to be as important as it is in OU as it is in Draft League, but Morning Sun is still very nice. The fact that it has any form of recovery is going to help out this very bulky Pokemon. It also has Bulk Up, so it has setup, so it can set up in something's face, Morning Sun it off, and then it has really good dual stabs or even coverage to hit whatever it needs to. And this thing bulking up is very scary because it already has a really scary 135 attack, and then one of its weaknesses would be its base defense only being 79. So being able to bulk up and raise that is going to be really nice, and hopefully this Pokemon will be not only a breaker but also a sweeper in some fashion with that. Earthquake allows it to hit, I don't know, steels and rocks, things that it already kind of hits, but it also allows it to hit any poisons, which poisons were a really big problem for this Pokemon, and the fact that it has Earthquake really kind of mitigates that. And then Flame Charge on this Pokemon, like I said, it's a Pokemon that's really good. It likes Scarf, right? It's 81 base speed. If you don't want to run First Impression for whatever reason, it is a very good Scarfer because it also has U-Turn, which is kind of obvious. Maybe I should talk about that one next, but regardless, this thing with Flame Charge, 81 base speed is very usable, and then you get a Choice Scarf boost without being locked in. It's still a very strong Pokemon you don't really want to take a hit from, so being able to get that Flame Charge boost up and switch up moves, maybe have an item to help you out, whether it be some sort of resist barrier or whether it be some sort of attack boosting attack boosting item, this Pokemon is going to be very scary with Flame Charge sets as well. Next up, we're going to get into a couple more utility moves that this Pokemon has. U-turn, obviously U-turn is very important in grabbing momentum. In Draft League, everybody knows Draft League player clicks U-turn. In this very, very offensive meta, U-turn is a very good tool that you can use. You get hazards up, you U-turn, you get into the threat, and you make them pivot. That is something that you always want to do. So U-turning with Slitherwing is going to be very, very important. It also has Lunge. Lunge is super, super nice because it can drop the attack of opposing Pokemon. So this thing could be Scarf Lunge, and you could drop the attack, and then the next Pokemon that comes in could live the hit, for instance, which is really nice. It also has both Will-O-Wisp and Stun Spore. Will-O-Wisp, I kind of expected, you know what Will-O-Wisp does, drops their attack in half after they are burned. Really good tool, but also Stun Spore is something that a lot of people aren't going to expect to come out from a bug fighting Pokemon. For the last portion of this video, I want to go ahead and show you guys 6 different sets that I think are feasible, 5 of which I do think are feasible on the ladder, and the other which I do think is usable in Draft League. So the first set that we have here is going to be a Bulk Up Slitherwing, Morning Sun, Bulk Up, Low Kick, and Leech Life. So I want to go ahead and talk about the Low Kick slot here. The Low Kick slot can also be replaced with Brick Break. It kind of just depends on what you think you're going to see on the ladder. I'm not sure how heavy certain things are on the ladder compared to how unheavy things are on the ladder, so Low Kick could easily be Brick Break V75 base power, but you're going to go ahead and be max more than likely because you're going to encounter other Slitherwing on the ladder. There's not really any room for error there. Obviously in Draft League you can play with the settings a little bit more, but this Pokemon is going to be able to bulk up in a lot of things phase, Morning Sun off of the damage, and then be able to hit it in some fashion and hopefully gain some health back with Leech Life or do a lot of damage with its fighting staff. The next Pokemon I have here is going to be a Banded Slitherwing. We're going to have First Impression, U-turn, Close Combat, and Earthquake. So the thought process here is First Impression, obviously very important on a Banded set. You want priority. Banded priority is going to be the hardest hitting move that you can possibly have with this Pokemon that also always goes first with its Lackluster Speed tier. Obviously U-turn, you want to force switches. It's a very hazard heavy meta. You really want to do that. Close Combat, self-explanatory. And then Earthquake. I have Earthquake over Flare Blitz on this set because even if they have other Slitherwing, you're going to do a whole lot of damage with U-turn. With Close Combat, you can gain momentum with U-turn, and Earthquake is there for any poisons like Clodsire or anything you may see on the ladder. The next one that we have is going to be a Scarf Slitherwing. We have U-turn, Leech Life, Close Combat, and this time we have Flare Blitz. So the reason I have Flare Blitz on this one is because you can actually outspeed opposing Slitherwing, which I think is very, not necessarily important. You could definitely switch it out for Earthquake. It's either or, but I think it's a cool niche that you could have, especially when you aren't really going to be clicking either of those moves anyway. You're probably going to be clicking U-turn. So I do like having Flare Blitz on, specifically the Scarf set. Next up, we're going to have a Heavy Duty Boots Flame Charge set. Flame Charge, Close Combat, Leech Life, and Flare Blitz. Flare Blitz is going to be here specifically for, again, other Slitherwing. It can also hit Godangle a little bit harder than Earthquake. On Flame Charge sets, that's pretty important. I feel like, obviously no U-turn because you don't want to Flame Charge U-turn out. Once you get that speed boost, you can kind of hit pretty much everything, to my knowledge, currently on the ladder or even in a Draft League setting with these 3 moves. Next up, this one's going to be kind of more geared towards Draft League, but this could be a cool set on some ladder teams here. We have Morning Sun, Stun Spore, Lunge, and U-turn. The thought process with this is you can heal with Morning Sun, you can spread status with Stun Spore, obviously only 75% accurate, and feel free to switch that to Will-O-Wisp as well. I think Stun Spore is a little bit more annoying though, obviously 75% accurate, so take your pick. And then we have Lunge, Lunge to lower attack. I think Lunge is a little bit better than Leech Life in this situation. And then we have U-turn, U-turn to grab momentum, very nice after getting a Stun Spore off. And one thing actually I would change on this set is I would go ahead and go max HP and then put the rest into attack, and then you have your status spreading set. And then lastly, this set is more geared towards Draft League. We are a Morning Sun, Bulk Up, Sub, and Brick Break set. If your opponent does not have a Ghost type, which are pretty common in this generation, so it's not going to happen all the time, but if they do not, this is going to be a very difficult set for your opponent to beat. However, you do have to keep in mind that Morning Sun only has 8 PP now, so you're very limited with what you can do. You got to get set up and you got to get going very, very fast. But that is going to be my competitive analysis for Slitherwing overall. I think this Pokemon is very good. I don't think it's a top tier threat, but I do think it is by far my favorite Pokemon that is introduced. I do think it's very usable. I think it's probably about a 15-point Pokemon, 14-point Pokemon in Draft League setting. It's a pretty good Pokemon overall. Wouldn't be a first rounder, probably a second or third rounder. Very good Pokemon, very much so like it. I hope you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to show your support by leaving a like down below. I'm going to be having more competitive analysis. The next one is probably going to be Iron Valiant, might be Flutter Mane, or might be Roaring Moon. Those are probably the next 3 I'm going to do. But thank you guys so much for watching, and for now guys, this has been John Jr. signing off.